My name is Maya Chin, and I learned early that sometimes the best way to protect yourself is to let people underestimate you. For 5 years I'd been the family joke, the broke startup kid, who couldn't afford nice clothes or fancy dinners. What they didn't know was that I was quietly building an empire while they dismissed every word I said. It all started when I was 23, fresh out of college with a computer science degree and a head full of ideas. My older sister, Rebecca, had just launched Anderson Tech, a promising software company focused on enterprise solutions. She was 30 then, charismatic, connected, and absolutely convinced she was destined for greatness. Our parents worshipped her. Dad would spend entire dinners talking about Rebecca's latest client acquisition or her appearance at tech conferences. Mom kept a scrapbook of every article mentioning Anderson Tech. Meanwhile, I was working 16-hour days in a cramped apartment, building what would eventually become Cascade AI, a machine learning platform that would revolutionize data analytics for mid-sized businesses. "Maya's still doing her little hobby," Mom would say, her voice dripping with concern that barely masked disappointment. "When are you going to get a real job, honey?" I'd just smile and change the subject. Let them think what they wanted. The truth was more complicated. 6 months after graduation, I'd developed a prototype that caught the attention of Sterling Ventures, one of Silicon Valley's most selective investment firms. They'd offered me a Series A round of $12 million. I took it. By 24, Cascade AI was generating $7 million in annual revenue. By 25, we'd hit profitability, something only 8% of startups ever achieve. But I kept it quiet. I drove a 10-year-old Honda. I lived in a modest apartment. I wore the same 5 outfits on rotation. My family saw what they expected to see, a struggling entrepreneur too proud to admit failure. What they didn't see was the investment portfolio I was building on the side. In 2020, Rebecca came to me desperate. Anderson Tech was running out of runway. She'd burned through her initial funding faster than expected, and investors were getting cold feet. The company was 90 days from shutting down. "Maya, I know we haven't always. I know I've been hard on you," she said over coffee, her hands shaking slightly. "But I need help. I need capital and I need it fast." I could have said no. I could have reminded her of every dismissive comment, every eye roll, every time she'd introduced me to her colleagues as my sister who's trying the startup thing. Instead, I saw an opportunity. "How much do you need?" I asked. $4.2 million would get us through the next 18 months and fund the product expansion we've been planning. I nodded slowly, pretending to consider it. In reality, I'd already made the decision. "I know some people. Let me make some calls." What I actually did was create an investment vehicle called Meridian Capital Group. It was a legitimate LLC with proper legal structure, but the beneficial owner was hidden behind several layers of corporate protection. I routed the investment through Sterling Ventures. They were happy to serve as the nominal investor in exchange for a small fee and the opportunity to potentially participate in future rounds. 2 weeks later, Rebecca got her $4.2 million from Meridian Capital Group, represented by Sterling Ventures. She never knew I was behind it. The terms were fair but structured to give Meridian, which meant me, significant control. 28% equity with weighted voting rights that effectively gave me veto power over major decisions. "They're angel investors who prefer to stay anonymous," the Sterling partner told her during the signing. "Very common in the industry. They like your vision and want to see Anderson Tech succeed." Rebecca was ecstatic. She called me that night, breathless with excitement. "Maya, you won't believe it. We got the funding. We're saved." "That's amazing, Beck," I said, genuinely happy for her despite everything. I knew someone would see the potential. "Yeah, well, they obviously know more about real business than some people," she said, her tone shifting. "Not everyone can just throw together an app and hope for the best." I let it slide. I always did. Over the next 3 years, I watched Anderson Tech grow. My investment, my $4.2 million, helped them scale from 15 employees to 60. They landed major contracts with 3 Fortune 500 companies. Revenue went from $800,000 annually to $12 million. Rebecca's face appeared in TechCrunch, Forbes, and Business Insider. She became the darling of the Midwest tech scene. And at every family gathering, she made sure everyone knew about her success. "Anderson Tech just closed another major deal," she'd announce at Sunday dinners. "We're projecting $18 million in revenue this year." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Dad would beam. Maya, are you still working on that? What was it again? Cascade AI, I'd say quietly. We're doing okay. Okay isn't great, honey, Mom would sigh. Rebecca's company is thriving. Maybe you should ask her for advice? Or even a job. I'm sure Anderson Tech could use someone with your technical skills. Rebecca would smile, but it never reached her eyes. Maya's a bit too independent for corporate structure, Mom. Some people just aren't cut out for real business growth. What they didn't know was that Cascade AI had just been valued at $85 million in our Series C round. We had 230 employees across 3 offices. We'd been profitable for 3 consecutive years. Forbes had named me to their 30 under 30 list. I'd declined the photo and kept my name off the public version, citing privacy concerns. The industry knew my company, but I'd carefully kept myself out of the spotlight. I had my reasons. Partly, I wanted to build something real without the pressure of family expectations. Partly, I was curious to see how long they'd keep dismissing me. But mostly I was protecting myself. I'd seen what attention did to Rebecca. How it inflated her ego, how it made her mean, how it turned her into someone who needed to be the center of attention at all times. I didn't want that life. I wanted to build, to create, to make something meaningful without the circus. Meanwhile, I continued monitoring Anderson Tech's growth as their silent angel investor. I received quarterly board reports. I attended board meetings via video conference with my camera off, identified only as Meridian Capital representative. I watched Rebecca make presentations, celebrate victories, and occasionally make decisions I disagreed with, but never badly enough to use my veto power. I was proud of what she'd built, even if she'd built it partially on my money and entirely on her dismissal of me. Then came Thanksgiving 2024. Rebecca had insisted on hosting at her new house, a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial she'd bought in an upscale suburb. She spent the entire dinner talking about the house, about Anderson Tech's latest contract, about the vacation home she was considering in Colorado. Real estate is the key to building lasting wealth, she announced, gesturing with her wine glass. That's what separates people who play at business from people who build empires. I was sitting at the far end of the table, Rebecca's seating arrangement not coincidentally, picking at my sweet potatoes and trying to be invisible. Maya, are you still in that tiny apartment downtown? Aunt Linda asked, her concern sounding almost genuine. Yeah, it works for me, I said. Close to the office, affordable. Affordable, Rebecca interrupted with a laugh. That's such a diplomatic way to say cheap. But that's fine, not everyone has the capital for real investment. Uncle James chuckled. How's the app coming along, kiddo? It's not really an app, it's a machine learning platform. While we build real businesses, you play with your little app, Rebecca said, her voice cutting through the room. She smiled, but there was something sharp underneath it. It's cute that you're still trying, Maya. Really. But at some point you have to face reality. Some people are meant to be entrepreneurs and some people are meant to be employees. The table went quiet for a moment, then Dad laughed. That uncomfortable laugh that meant he agreed but didn't want to say it out loud. Mom nodded sympathetically. My cousins looked at their plates. Everyone was complicit in the dismissal. Everyone always was. I mean, it's been what, 5 years? Rebecca continued, warming to her theme. How much have you made? Anything? Or are you still just burning through your savings pretending you're building something? I set down my fork carefully. My phone was on my lap, under the table where no one could see. I felt that familiar sensation, the one I always got when Rebecca went too far. It was time. I'm doing fine, I said quietly. Fine isn't thriving, sweetheart, Rebecca said, using the same condescending tone Mom always did. Fine is what you say when you're too embarrassed to admit you're failing. Look, there's no shame in it. Not everyone can handle the pressure of real business. You're smart, you're technical. Maybe it's time to accept that your skills would be better used supporting someone else's vision. Like I said, Anderson Tech is always looking for good developers. That's actually a great idea, Dad jumped in. Maya, maybe Rebecca could bring you on board. Give you some stability, some real income. I appreciate the offer, I said, pulling out my phone, but I'm good. I opened my secure messaging app and typed quickly to my investment manager, David Torres at Sterling Ventures. Withdraw all funding from Anderson Tech, execute immediately. Authorization code, CHIN 2024 Theta 7. I hit send. Rebecca was still talking something about health insurance and retirement benefits, but I wasn't listening. I was watching my phone waiting for the confirmation. It came 10 seconds later. Confirmed. Withdrawal initiated. Board notification sent. Legal team standing by. Rebecca's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, and kept talking. So what do you say, Maya? Want to finally join a real company? Her phone rang. She looked annoyed, checked the screen, and her face changed. It's Gregory, she said, referring to her CEO. I should take it, Mom encouraged. Business always comes first. Rebecca answered, her confident smile still in place. Hey Gregory, can this wait? I'm at thanks. She stopped. Her smile faltered. What? Slow down, what are you talking about? The table fell silent, everyone watching Rebecca's face cycle through confusion, concern, and then something close to panic. That's impossible, she said, standing up from the table. Meridian wouldn't. They've been with us for 4 years. They're our biggest. She listened, her face going pale. What do you mean withdrawing? All of it? They can't just. She looked at her phone like it had betrayed her. Gregory, I need to call you back. She hung up and immediately started dialing someone else, her hands shaking. Sweetheart, what's wrong? Dad asked, concerned. It's nothing, Rebecca said, but her voice was tight. Just, there's a situation at work. I need to make some calls. Her next call went to someone else on the board. I could hear her voice rising even though she'd stepped into the kitchen. David, it's Rebecca Anderson. What the hell is going on? I just got a call that Meridian is withdrawing their entire investment. That's $4.2 million. They can't just. I could hear David Torres's calm voice through the phone, too quiet to make out words but clear in tone. Professional, final, non-negotiable. Legal grounds. Rebecca's voice cracked. What legal grounds? We have a contract. They're an angel investor, they're supposed to. She listened and I watched her face crumble. Their investment agreement allows withdrawal with 30 days notice for any reason? That can't be. I need to see the original documents. I need. She stopped talking. Listen. Then very quietly said, who is Meridian Capital Group? Who's actually behind it? I knew what David was telling her. That information was confidential, protected by multiple layers of legal structure, and not available for disclosure. Rebecca came back to the table, her face ashen. She looked at everyone, her perfect Thanksgiving dinner falling apart in real time. I need to go, she said. There's a crisis at the company. I have to. What kind of crisis? Dad demanded. Our primary investor is withdrawing their funding. $4.2 million. It could destroy the company. I thought you were thriving? Mom said, confused. We were. But that money is critical for our operations. Without it, we can't make payroll next month. We can't. She looked at me suddenly, desperately. Maya, you said you know people. You said you made calls when I needed money before. Can you? I can make some calls, I said calmly. But I can't promise anything. Please, she said, and for the first time in years she looked at me like I was a real person. Please. I know I haven't been kind to you. But this is everything. This is my entire life. I nodded slowly. I'll see what I can do. Rebecca grabbed her coat and left, already on the phone with her board chairman. Through the window, I watched her pace in the driveway, her free hand gesturing wildly as she argued with someone about emergency financing options. The rest of dinner was subdued. Dad kept checking his phone for updates from Rebecca. Mom picked at her food, worried. My cousins and aunt and uncle made awkward small talk about anything except Anderson Tech. I excused myself early, claiming I had work to catch up on. No one tried to stop me. The next morning I had a video conference scheduled with the Anderson Tech board. I'd requested it through David Torres, finally ready to reveal myself. I dressed carefully, not in my usual casual startup wear, but in a crisp white button-down and blazer. I set up in my home office, making sure the wall behind me showed my diplomas and awards, including the Forbes 30 Under 30 plaque I'd kept hidden. The board assembled on screen, Rebecca looking exhausted and desperate, Gregory Wu, her COO, Sarah Martinez, the CFO, and 3 other board members including the chairman Walter Prescott. Thank you all for making time on short notice. David Torres began from his office at Sterling Ventures. I've arranged this call to introduce you to the beneficial owner of Meridian Capital Group, who has some things to discuss regarding yesterday's withdrawal notice. Rebecca leaned forward. Please, we need to understand what happened. We've been excellent partners. Our metrics are strong. If there's something we did wrong, let me turn it over to Meridian's principal, David said smoothly. I turned on my camera. The reaction was immediate. Rebecca's mouth fell open. Gregory looked confused. Sarah's eyes went wide with recognition. She was sharp enough to immediately understand what was happening. Hello everyone, I said calmly. My name is Maya Chin and I'm the founder and sole principal of Meridian Capital Group. I'm also the founder and CEO of Cascade AI. And as of 4 years ago, I've been Anderson Tech's primary angel investor. That's not possible, Rebecca whispered. You can't, you're just. Just what? I asked not unkindly. Just a broke startup kid playing with a little app? Walter Prescott recovered first. Miss Chin, we weren't aware of your involvement. The investment came through Sterling Ventures. As my representative, yes. I preferred to remain anonymous. It's not uncommon in angel investing. Why are you withdrawing? Rebecca asked, her voice small. I pulled up a document on my screen and shared it with the call. This is the original investment agreement. Section 4.3 grants Meridian the right to withdraw funding with 30 days notice for any reason or no reason at all. You signed this, Rebecca. Your lawyers reviewed it. But why now? She demanded, some of her old fire returning. We're doing better than ever. We just landed the Branson Industries contract. I know. I read all your board reports. I've been on every board call for 4 years, camera off, identified as the Meridian representative. I paused. I've watched you build something genuinely impressive. You're a talented entrepreneur, Rebecca. You have vision and drive. Then why? Because last night you offered me a job as a developer at your company. A company that exists in large part because I gave you $4.2 million when no one else would. The silence on the call was absolute. You've spent 4 years dismissing me, I continued, keeping my voice even. At every family gathering, every holiday, every Sunday dinner, you made sure everyone knew I was failing while you were thriving. You offered me charity employment at a company I own 28% of. Gregory was frantically typing on his laptop, clearly pulling up the cap table. Holy shit, he muttered. She's right. Meridian owns 28% with weighted voting rights. Sarah was already doing calculations. If Meridian withdraws, we have approximately 45 days of operating capital. We'd need to secure replacement funding or you'd have to shut down, I finished. I know. That's what happens when your primary angel investor decides they're done. You can't do this, Rebecca said, but there was no conviction in her voice. You can't just destroy my company because I hurt your feelings. I'm not destroying anything. I'm exercising my contractual rights as an investor. You built this company, Rebecca. But you built it with my money and you built it while treating me like I was nothing. Walter cleared his throat. Miss Chin, what would it take for you to reconsider? I'd been thinking about this for 16 hours. I want a full board seat. Not as Meridian Capital. As Maya Chin. I want my name on the documents, my face at the meetings. I want public acknowledgement that I've been your primary investor since 2020. Done, Walter said immediately. I'm not finished. I also want Rebecca to issue a public statement, on Anderson Tech's website and social media, acknowledging me as a founding investor and apologizing for misrepresenting our relationship. Rebecca's face flushed red. You want me to humiliate myself? I want you to tell the truth, I corrected. I'm not asking you to lie or exaggerate, just to publicly acknowledge that your broke startup kid sister saved your company and has been supporting it for 4 years. And if I refuse? I shrugged. Then I withdraw my investment as planned. You have 30 days to find $4.2 million from other sources. Given your current burn rate and the tight funding environment, I'd say your chances are about 15%. Maybe 20 if you're lucky. Rebecca looked at Walter, at Gregory, at Sarah. All the people who depended on Anderson Tech surviving. Then she looked back at me. You've changed, she said quietly. No, I replied. You just never actually looked at me before. Walter stepped in. Miss Chin, your terms are acceptable. We'll draw up the revised board documentation immediately. Rebecca will issue the statement by end of business Monday. In exchange, you'll reinstate your investment. Not exactly, I said and watched Rebecca's face fall again. I'll reinstate $3 million. The other $1.2 million will be converted to a formal loan with market rate interest. Anderson Tech will pay me back over the next 3 years. That's, Rebecca started. Fair, I interrupted. It's actually generous. You get to keep your company. I get to stop being invisible. And you learn that dismissing people has consequences. Sarah was already nodding, running numbers. The loan structure is workable. It'll affect our cash flow but won't cripple us. Then we have a deal, Walter said. Ms. Chen, welcome to the Anderson Tech board. Officially this time. The statement went up on Anderson Tech's website Monday afternoon. Rebecca had fought over every word, but the final version was clear. Anderson Tech is pleased to formally acknowledge Maya Chen, founder and CEO of Cascade AI, as our primary angel investor since 2020. Ms. Chen's $4.2 million investment was critical to our early growth and continued success. We regret any prior mischaracterizations of her role and are honored to have her join our board officially. Rebecca Anderson, CEO. Within an hour it was picked up by TechCrunch. By evening it was trending in tech circles on social media. People were impressed not just by the investment, which was substantial for an angel round, but by the fact that I'd done it anonymously while building my own company. The Cascade AI PR team, who I'd been keeping on a tight leash for years, finally got to do their job. They confirmed the Forbes 30 Under 30 recognition. They revealed our Series C valuation of $85 million. They positioned me as a rare example of a founder who invested in other startups while bootstrapping their own success. My phone exploded with messages. Interview requests. Speaking invitations. Other entrepreneurs asking for investment advice. And one text from Rebecca. We need to talk. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our offices. She looked tired, older somehow. The stress of nearly losing everything had left marks. I'm sorry, she said before I could even sit down. Not just for the statement. For everything. For 5 years of treating you like you were nothing. I sat down, ordered a coffee. Waited. I was jealous, she admitted. You were always smarter than me. Everyone knew it. I got the social skills, the charisma, the ability to work a room. You got the raw intelligence. And I think I spent my whole life trying to prove I was just as smart. That I could build something just as significant. You did build something significant, I said honestly. Anderson Tech is impressive. You should be proud. Built with your money, she said bitterly. Built with investment capital like most startups. The money was just money, Rebecca. It was how you treated me that mattered. She nodded, tears forming. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you just say, I'm the investor from the beginning? Would you have taken the money if you knew? She was quiet for a long moment. No, she finally admitted. No, I wouldn't have. I would have rather let the company die than accept money from my broke startup kid sister. That's why I didn't tell you. You were testing me. All these years, you were testing whether I'd eventually see you as a real person. Partly. Also protecting you. If you'd known I was Meridian, you might have made different decisions. Worse decisions. Trying to prove something to me instead of just building the best company you could. Rebecca wiped her eyes. What happens now? Now you run your company. I sit on the board. We work together professionally. And maybe, eventually, we figure out how to be sisters again. Do you think that's possible? I considered it. 5 years of dismissal. 5 years of casual cruelty. But also 5 years of watching her build something real, of seeing her face when she talked about her team, of understanding that she wasn't malicious, just insecure and defensive. I think it's possible, I said. But it's going to take work. Real work. Starting with you accepting that I'm not your broke little sister anymore. I never was. No, she agreed. You never were. That Sunday dinner was different. Mom and Dad had read the articles. Aunt Linda had sent me 3 congratulatory texts. My cousins were suddenly very interested in learning about machine learning. Rebecca arrived with her husband, and for the first time in years she didn't monopolize the conversation. When Dad asked about Anderson Tech, she gave a brief update and then said, but Maya's got some exciting news about Cascade AI. They just closed a major partnership with Branson Industries. Everyone turned to me. I could see the recalculation happening in their faces. The reframing of every interaction we'd had, every dismissal, every casual cruelty. It's a good partnership, I said simply. We're excited about it. Hiya, Mom started, her voice uncertain. We had no idea you were doing so well. Why didn't you say something? I tried, I said quietly. You just weren't listening. The table went silent. It wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. Well, Dad said finally, clearing his throat, we're listening now. Rebecca looked at me across the table. There was something different in her eyes. Respect, maybe, or the beginning of it. We all are, she said. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't redemption. But it was a start. Later, after dinner, Rebecca found me alone in the kitchen. The loan payments start next quarter, she said. 300,000 every 6 months for 3 years. I know. Sarah sent me the schedule. We'll make every payment on time. I promise. I know you will. She hesitated, then asked, did you really build Cascade AI to 85 million while investing in my company and living in that tiny apartment? Yeah. How? I smiled. Turns out when people underestimate you, they leave you alone to work. No pressure. No expectations. Just you and the code and the vision. It's actually pretty liberating. I made that possible, she said, not quite joking. By being terrible to you. You made it necessary, I corrected. There's a difference. She nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I am proud of you. Really proud. I was just too insecure to say it before. I know. And for what it's worth, Cascade AI is genuinely impressive. Better than Anderson Tech, honestly. Different, I said. Not better. Different markets, different challenges. You built something real, Rebecca. I just got tired of you pretending I hadn't. She laughed, but there were tears in it. I'm going to do better. As a sister, as a person. I promise. I'm going to hold you to that. I know. You hold everyone to high standards. It's one of the things that makes you a good investor. We stood there in the kitchen, two sisters who'd spent years misunderstanding each other, finally starting to figure it out. You want to know the irony? I said. What? I was never trying to compete with you. I never wanted to prove I was better or smarter. I just wanted to build something meaningful. And I wanted you to see me. I see you now, she said. Finally. It was enough. Not perfect, not healed, but enough to build on. 6 months later, Anderson Tech made its first loan payment to Meridian Capital Group. $300,000 on time and in full. Rebecca sent it with a note, first of 6. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in you. Cascade AI raised a Series D at a $400 million valuation. I finally moved out of the tiny apartment into a modest house with a nice home office. I bought a car that was only 8 years old instead of 10. And I accepted an interview with Forbes, camera on, name public, ready to tell my story. The article ran with the headline, The Silent Investor. How Maya Chin built an $85 million company while secretly funding her sister's startup. Rebecca texted me when it published, you could have destroyed me. Instead you saved me and taught me something. I'm grateful for both. See you at Sunday dinner. I texted back, see you there. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just finally being seen for who you actually are, and watching the people who dismissed you realize what they almost lost. My name is Maya Chin. I'm the founder and CEO of Cascade AI, valued at $400 million. I'm a board member at Anderson Tech. I'm a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree. And I'm no longer anyone's broke startup kid. I never was.